The message repeated itself over and over, filling the grand chamber of the Galactic Council with soft, desperate words. "This is Haven Colony. We are under attack. Please help us. The raiders have taken our outer settlements. They are moving toward our central cities. We cannot fight them. Please, anyone, help us." The voice belonged to a Lumen, one of the gentle light beings who had settled the distant world they called Haven. Their kind was known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and peaceful ways. They were also known for having no defenses. Ambassador Gray stood before the curved table where the 12 senior council members sat. His thin fingers tapped nervously on his datapad as the message played again. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. None wanted to speak first. "The message has been repeating for 3 days," Gray finally said. "The Void Raiders have likely taken half the planet by now." Admiral Pike, the only military officer present, nodded grimly. "The Raiders never leave survivors. They take what they want: resources, artifacts, slaves, and destroy everything else." The head counselor, an ancient being with skin like polished wood, leaned forward. "We all feel for the Lumen, but Haven is at the edge of known space. None of our peacekeeping forces could reach them in time." Gray had expected this answer. It was the same one he had received from every species he had approached over the last 72 hours. The Aurat could not send ships because of their religious holiday. The Mindari were in the middle of their hibernation cycle. The Ziv simply did not have military vessels. "There is one option we haven't tried," Gray said carefully. He knew his next words would not be welcome. "Earth." The chamber went silent. Even the distress call seemed to fade into the background. "The humans?" The head counselor's voice was barely above a whisper. "You cannot be serious. They have ships, fast ones. Their planet is closer to Haven than any of our homeworlds. And they are barbarians," interrupted Counselor Thren, her feathered crest rising in agitation. "They come from a Class-12 Deathworld. Do you know what that means, Ambassador? Their planet tried to kill them every day of their evolution, and instead of dying like sensible creatures, they fought back and won." Admiral Pike cleared his throat. "Counselor Thren is not wrong about their nature, but the humans do have one unusual trait. They respond to distress signals, always. It's almost a compulsion for them." Gray nodded quickly. "It's true. In the 5 years since Earth joined the Council, they've diverted their ships 11 times to answer distress calls from species they've never even met. And in doing so, they've engaged in violence each time," Counselor Thren countered. "Only against aggressors," Pike said. "Never against the ones who called for help." The head counselor raised a hand for silence. "Even if we decided to request their aid, what could one planet do? The Void Raiders have a fleet." Pike and Gray exchanged a look. It was Pike who answered. "The humans don't fight like the rest of us," he said simply. "They're different." The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices, some curious, some outraged. The head counselor finally restored order by activating the room's attention chime. "We will put it to a vote," the head counselor declared. "Should we formally request Earth's assistance for the Lumen of Haven?" The vote was close, 7 for, 5 against. Gray felt relief wash over him, though he knew many would criticize this decision. He quickly drafted the formal request and sent it through the special channel established for communication with Earth. The council members waited in uneasy silence. Most expected a delayed response or a polite refusal. Earth had kept to itself since joining the galactic community, sending only a few representatives who rarely spoke at meetings. The reply came just 3 minutes later. "SOS acknowledged. HMS Nemesis en route. ETA 72 hours. Gray read the message, aloud, and the council members looked at each other in confusion. "HMS?" asked the head counselor. "It stands for His Majesty's ship," Admiral Pike explained. "A traditional designation for their vessels. But, Nemesis? I'm not familiar with that ship." A junior aide hurried into the chamber and whispered something to Pike. The Admiral's eyes widened slightly. "Well?" prompted Counselor Thren. The Nemesis is not listed in Earth's registered civilian fleet, Pike said slowly. It's a military vessel. A destroyer, specifically. The chamber went completely silent. They're sending a warship? The head counselor's voice was faint with disbelief. Not aid workers or diplomats or peacekeepers, but an actual warship? I believe, Pike said carefully, that the humans have interpreted our request in their own way. They see a people under attack and they're responding with protection. Protection? Counselor Thren scoffed. Is that what they call it? They're sending an instrument of death. Gray looked down at his datapad, where the simple human message still displayed. Just 3 lines. Direct, efficient. No diplomacy, no hesitation, no questions asked. Simply, we heard you, we're coming. We'll be there in 3 days. We should alert the Lumen, Gray suggested. Tell them help is coming. Are we sure it is help? Asked the head counselor. Perhaps we should clarify with Earth exactly what their intentions are. Admiral Pike shook his head. The Nemesis has already departed Earth space at full speed. They won't stop for clarification. Another aide entered and handed Pike a data crystal. The Admiral inserted it into the chamber's projector, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a ship unlike any the council members had seen before. Sleek, black, with no visible weapons but somehow radiating menace. This is the only known image of the Nemesis, Pike explained. Taken during a joint exercise last year. Earth doesn't share specifications of their military vessels. It looks predatory, whispered a counselor. Admiral, the head counselor, said, in your professional opinion, what exactly will happen when this ship reaches Haven? Pike studied the rotating image, his expression unreadable. The humans have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. It means to negotiate peacefully while having powerful force in reserve. He gestured to the image of the Nemesis. This, council members, is a very big stick. The Void Raiders are about to learn something that every predator on Earth discovered long ago. Sometimes what looks like prey is actually a predator in disguise. In the background, the Lumen distress call continued its loop. Please anyone, help us. But now those words carried a different weight. Help was coming, but it wasn't the kind of help anyone had expected. As the council session ended, Gray found himself wondering about the humans' response. Most species would have sent their kindest members, their most diplomatic voices, their gentlest helpers. The humans were sending their warriors. Gray wasn't sure if that made them monsters or heroes. Perhaps, he thought as he looked again at the image of the Nemesis, they were something else entirely. Something the galaxy had no name for yet. But the Void Raiders would soon find out. Captain Reese stood perfectly still on the bridge of the HMS Nemesis, hands clasped behind her back. Through the main viewport, she watched stars stretch into lines as the ship cut through hyperspace. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft beeping of instruments and the occasional murmur of the crew at their stations. Time to arrival? Reese asked, her voice calm. 26 minutes, Captain, answered Lieutenant Foster from the communication station. The young officer continued. The Lumen distress signal is still broadcasting. No change in the message. Reese nodded. 3 days of travel at maximum speed had brought them to the edge of the Haven system. 3 days during which the Void Raiders had continued their attack on a defenseless people. Tactical display, Reese ordered. Commander Stone, the first officer, activated the holographic projector in the center of the bridge. A 3-dimensional map of the Haven system appeared, with the planet itself glowing a soft blue at the center. Red dots marked the positions of 7 Raider ships in orbit. Their fleet is spread out, Stone observed. No defensive formation, they're not expecting company. Why would they? Reese said. The nearest Galactic Council outpost is 2 weeks away at top speed. But we're not from the Council, Stone said with a small smile. No, agreed Reese. We're not. Dr. Wells, the ship's xenobiologist, entered the bridge with a datapad in hand. Her white lab coat stood out against the dark uniforms of the bridge crew. Captain, I've completed my research on the Lumen, Wells said. They're even more vulnerable than we thought. Reese gestured for Wells to continue. The lumen evolved on a world with no predators and no natural disasters, Wells explained, displaying images of tall, slender beings with faintly glowing skin. Their bodies produce natural light, bioluminescence, and they're telepathic within. Short ranges. Telepathic? Stone asked, suddenly concerned. Will they be able to read our minds? Not exactly, Wells said. They sense emotions and general thoughts, but they can't dig into memories or secrets. It's more like feeling the shape of someone's thoughts. And what will they feel from us? Reese asked quietly. Wells hesitated. That's the problem, Captain. The Lumen have no concept of violence, none. Their entire evolution happened without it. When they sense our capacity for combat, our willingness to fight, it might frighten them as much as the Raiders do. Reese considered this information. So we're going to rescue people who might be afraid of us. People who may not understand that we're trying to help. Yes, Wells confirmed. But there's something else. Their telepathy works both ways. When a lumen is killed, all nearby lumen feel it happen. The Raiders aren't just attacking them physically. They're causing psychological trauma with every death. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this information. Reese's expression hardened. Tell me about the Raiders, she said. Stone adjusted the holographic display, bringing up images of various ships and alien beings. The Void Raiders aren't a single species, Stone explained. They're outcasts and criminals from a dozen different worlds who joined together under one leader, Commander Dusk. The display showed a tall, dark-skinned alien with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. Dusk was once a respected military officer in the Tarak fleet, Stone continued. He was dishonorably discharged for excessive violence against civilians during a peacekeeping operation. Instead of accepting punishment, he stole a warship and disappeared into the outer systems. Over the years, he's gathered others like him, beings who enjoy causing pain. Their tactics? Reese asked. Standard raid protocol, Stone replied. They target developing worlds with valuable resources but limited defenses. They take what they want, minerals, technology, slaves, and destroy everything else. No witnesses, no consequences. Until now, Reese said quietly. The ship's navigator called out, Preparing to exit hyperspace, Captain. Battle stations, Reese ordered. Throughout the ship, lights dimmed to combat settings and alert signals sounded. Crew members moved with practiced efficiency to their positions. Activate stealth systems upon exit, Reese continued. No emissions, no transmissions. I want us completely invisible. Stealth systems ready, reported the tactical officer. Exit. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stretched stars suddenly snapped back to points of light as the Nemesis dropped out of hyperspace at the very edge of the Haven system. The ship's special hull absorbed rather than reflected light, making it appear like a moving shadow against the stars. Stealth systems active, confirmed the tactical officer. We are running silent. Long-range scanners, Reese ordered. The main view screen changed to show Haven in detail. It was a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents, but even from this distance the crew could see dark smoke rising from several locations on the planet's surface. Magnify, Reese said, her voice tight. The image zoomed in on one of the burning areas. It had once been a city, a collection of elegant crystal-like structures arranged in circular patterns. Now half of those structures were shattered or burning. Small ships moved between the buildings, landing to collect goods and captives before taking off again. Life signs? Reese asked. Thousands of lumen life signatures concentrated in what appear to be detention areas, reported the sensor officer. Raider forces are moving through the city systematically. Reese studied the tactical display, noting the positions of all 7 Raider ships. One small vessel was currently separate from the others, positioned near the edge of the system on patrol duty. Perfect, Reese murmured. She turned to Stone. First, we need information. Target the isolated patrol ship. Approach course minimum power. Let's introduce ourselves. As the Nemesis glided silently through space toward the unsuspecting Raider vessel, Reese opened a secure channel to the ship's special operations bay, where 12 soldiers in black combat armor were checking their equipment. Sergeant Miller, Reese called. A tall, broad-shouldered soldier looked up at the screen. Captain, prepare your team for ground deployment, Reese instructed. Your primary objective is to secure Lumen hostages and gather intelligence on Raider. Ground forces. Rules of engagement, Miller asked. Protect the Lumen at all costs, Reese replied. As for the Raider, she paused. Use your judgment, Sergeant, but remember they started this, we're going to finish it. Miller nodded once, understanding perfectly. Back on the bridge, the Nemesis closed in on the lone Raider patrol ship, AE, vessel called the Viper according to its identification signal. The Raider crew had no idea they were being hunted. In range, Captain, reported the tactical officer. Reese took a deep breath. This was the moment when the mission truly began. Until now, they had been observers. With her next order, they would become participants in a battle that would likely change this system forever. The Lumen had sent out a call for help, expecting aid workers, diplomats, or perhaps a few peacekeepers with limited weapons. Instead, they were getting the HMS Nemesis, one of Earth's most advanced warships, crewed by beings who had evolved on a world where danger lurked around every corner, where survival meant being stronger or smarter or faster than whatever was trying to kill you. Disengage stealth systems, Reese ordered. Target their engines only. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. The black hull of the Nemesis suddenly lit up as its systems powered to full capacity. To the crew of the Viper, it must have seemed like a predator materializing out of nowhere. Open communications, Reese said. The Raiders were about to learn an important lesson. Sometimes when you hunt the helpless, you attract the attention of something far more dangerous than your prey. Reese stepped forward, her voice clear and firm as she addressed the enemy. This is Captain Reese of the Earth vessel Nemesis. You are conducting illegal operations against a protected species. Surrender immediately. The hunt had begun. The bridge of the Raider ship Viper fell silent as Captain Reese's face appeared on their main screen. The human's calm expression revealed nothing, but her words hung in the air like a threat. This is Captain Reese of the Earth vessel Nemesis. You are conducting illegal operations against a protected species. Surrender immediately. The Viper's captain, a scarred alien named Fang, recovered quickly from his surprise. Patch me through to Commander Dusk, he hissed to his communications officer. Moments later, Commander Dusk's face appeared on a secondary screen. His red eyes narrowed as Fang explained the situation. One ship? Dusk laughed, his voice deep and rough. The Galactic Council must be truly desperate to send a single vessel. Dusk moved his face closer to his camera, addressing the human captain directly. Tell your council masters that Haven belongs to the Void Raiders now. Leave while you still can. We're not from the Council, Reese replied evenly. We're from Earth. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Dusk's face. Earth? The Deathworld? He paused, then shrugged with all four arms. Your reputation is exaggerated. One ship cannot stand against 7. Leave now, and we might allow it. Reese ended the transmission without responding. Commander Stone looked at her. They're not taking us seriously. Good, Reese said with a small smile. Target the Viper's engine section. Precision strike only. On the tactical screen, the crew watched as the Nemesis's targeting systems locked onto the Raider vessel's propulsion systems. Fire, Reese ordered. A single energy beam lanced out from the Nemesis, striking the Viper with surgical precision. The Raider ship's engines flared and died, leaving it drifting helplessly. Direct hit, reported the tactical officer. Their engines are disabled, life support intact. Now we have their attention, Reese said. All remaining Raider ships are changing course to intercept us. 6 warships, each larger than the Nemesis, began moving to surround the human vessel, their weapons charged, glowing points of light against the blackness of space. They're forming a standard encirclement pattern, Stone observed. Predictable. Too predictable, Reese agreed. She turned to her navigation officer. Prepare hyperspace. Jump sequence Alpha. Target coordinates directly behind their command ship. The officer looked startled. Captain, a jump that short is extremely dangerous. The calculations have already been made, Reese interrupted. This is what we trained for, Lieutenant. As the raider ships closed in, their weapons reaching optimal firing range, Reese gave the order. Execute jump. The nemesis vanished inside, a flash of light only to reappear seconds later directly behind the largest raider vessel, Dusk's command ship, the Scourge. Fire at will, Reese commanded. The nemesis unleashed a barrage of weapons fire at the Scourge's unprotected rear. Alarms blared on the raider vessels as they scrambled to adjust their formation. They're confused, Stone said with satisfaction. They've never seen a ship make a jump that precise within a system. Again, Reese ordered, jump sequence beta. The nemesis disappeared once more, reappearing above a different raider ship. More precision strikes followed. They're trying to predict our pattern, Stone noted as the raiders began firing wildly. There's no pattern, Reese replied. On Haven's surface, Sergeant Miller led his team of Special Forces soldiers through the ruins of what had once been a beautiful Lumen city. They had landed their stealth dropship in a forest clearing 5 kilometers from the largest detention center. Miller signaled his team to stop as they reached the edge of a clearing. Ahead, a large crystal structure had been converted into a prison. Raider guards patrolled the perimeter, while inside hundreds of Lumen were visible, their softly glowing bodies making them easy to spot even from a distance. 6 guards at the main entrance, whispered Harris, the team's scout. 4 more on the roof, simple alarm system. Miller nodded. Standard formation, non-lethal takedowns if possible. Remember, the Lumen will sense any deaths telepathically. The team split into 3 groups and moved silently through the shadows. Miller's group approached the main entrance using the cover of fallen crystal columns. The raiders, accustomed to facing no resistance, had grown careless in their guard duty. 2 were actually playing a game with small stones, while the others talked loudly among themselves. Miller gave the signal, and his team moved. They struck with quiet efficiency, stun weapons dropping 4 guards before they could react. The remaining 2 reached for their weapons but were quickly overwhelmed by the human speed and precision. In less than a minute, all guards were neutralized and Miller's team had control of the entrance. Main entrance secure, Miller reported through his communicator. Team 2, status? Roof secured, came the reply. No alarms triggered. Team 3, begin extraction. As Miller's soldiers moved into the detention center, they encountered something unexpected. The Lumen prisoners were not cowering in fear, as might be expected. Instead, they were standing near the entrance, their bodies glowing with a strange pulsing light. An older Lumen stepped forward, taller than the others with skin that shimmered like sunlight on water. We felt your minds approaching. The Lumen said in a soft voice. You are different. Miller lowered his weapon. My name is Sergeant Miller. We're humans from Earth. We've come to help. The Lumen studied him with large, luminous eyes. Your minds are strange to us, ordered yet chaotic. You intend violence, but for protection? That's right, Miller confirmed. We're here to help, but we do things differently than you're used to. The Lumen introduced himself as Bright, an elder of his people. I have seen into the minds of the raiders, Bright said, his light dimming slightly. There is only darkness there, hunger, and cruelty, but you— He tilted his head curiously. You contain both light and darkness in perfect balance. Before Miller could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the compound. Through the crystal walls, they could see more raider ships landing nearby. They know we're here, Harris said tensely. Protect the Lumen, Miller ordered his team. Defensive positions. As raiders poured into the detention center from multiple entrances, the human soldiers moved with practiced coordination. Unlike the Lumen, who could only flee from violence, the humans engaged it with controlled precision. The raiders, expecting easy targets, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Miller's team used the crystal architecture for cover, setting traps and ambushes that confused and separated the attacking forces. Bright and the other Lumen watched in astonishment as the humans fought. Where a Lumen would panic or freeze, the humans remained calm. Where the raiders attacked with wild aggression, the humans responded with calculated efficiency. How do they fight like this? One Raider commander shouted into his communicator as his forces fell back in disarray. It's like they've been preparing for this their entire lives. From his position behind a fallen column, Miller spotted a group of Raiders using their weapons to herd Lumen prisoners as shields. He switched his rifle to stun setting and spoke quietly to Bright, who had remained nearby. Can your people hear thoughts from a distance? Miller asked. Bright's glow pulsed. Yes, if we focus together. We need a distraction, Miller explained, quickly. Can your people send a message to all the Lumen in that group at once? Tell them to drop to the ground on my signal? Bright nodded, his light brightening with understanding. The elder Lumen closed his eyes and several nearby Lumen joined hands, their collective glow intensifying. Miller counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. All at once, every Lumen being held by the Raiders dropped to the floor. In the split second of confusion that followed, Miller's team fired, dropping the surprised Raiders with precise stun blasts. It worked, Bright said, his voice filled with wonder. We have never used our abilities this way before. Sometimes, seeing things differently is an advantage, Miller replied, already moving toward the next group of Raiders. As the battle continued, the Lumen began to understand something profound about the humans. These strange beings from a world called Earth didn't just know how to fight. They had evolved with it, refined it, mastered it. The violence that so terrified the Lumen was, to humans, simply another skill to be used when necessary. And now, for the first time, the Raiders were facing an enemy who could match their aggression with something more dangerous: discipline. Over his communicator, Miller heard the voice of Captain Reese. Ground team, status report. Primary detention center secured, Captain, Miller replied as his team rounded up the last of the surrendering Raiders. But there's something you should know. He looked at Bright and the gathered Lumen, who were now using their telepathic abilities to help locate hidden Raiders. The Lumen are helping us, Miller continued. They can't fight, but they can be our eyes. I think we've just found some unexpected allies. Above them, in orbit, the battle between the Nemesis and the Raider fleet continued. But now a new kind of partnership was forming on the ground. One between a species that had never known violence and another that had mastered it completely. The Raiders had no idea what was coming next. 3 hours into the battle, the Nemesis took its first serious hit. A coordinated attack by 3 Raider ships caught the human vessel as it emerged from a hyperspace jump. Energy beams struck the port side, causing the ship to shudder violently. On the bridge, Captain Reese gripped her command chair as warning alarms blared. Damage report. Hull breach on Deck 3, reported Commander Stone, studying the damage control display. Automatic seals engaged. Lieutenant Gray was injured. Medical team responding. Shields at 62%, added the tactical officer. 2. Weapon systems offline. Reese's expression remained calm, but her eyes hardened. The Raiders were adapting to their tactics faster than expected. She needed to change her approach. Status of Raider fleet? She asked. 2 ships disabled, 5 still combat capable, Stone replied. But they're starting to coordinate their attacks. Their command ship is directing the others to predict our jump points. Reese nodded thoughtfully. Contact Sergeant Miller on the surface. I need an update. On Haven's surface, Miller and his team had secured 3 detention centers, freeing thousands of Lumen. But now they faced a new problem. The Raiders had fallen back to their main base, an ancient Lumen temple converted into a fortress. Intelligence, gathered from captured Raiders, confirmed that Commander Dusk himself had taken control of the ground operation. Captain, Miller reported over his communicator, we've secured most of the captive Lumen, but Dusk is using the remaining prisoners as hostages in the central temple. He's threatened to execute them if we advance further. Miller stood on a hill overlooking the temple. Beside him, Elder Bright and several other Lumen focused their telepathic abilities on the fortress, sensing what was happening inside. There are 213 of our people inside, Bright said, his normally gentle voice strained. They are frightened. The one called Dusk is angry. His mind burns with hatred. Reese's voice came through Miller's communicator. Can you assault the temple? Not without risking the hostages, Miller replied. The raiders have set up explosive charges throughout the building. They're desperate. There was a pause before Reese spoke again. Hold your position. I'm sending Dr. Wells to your location. She has an idea that might help. Less than 30 minutes later, a small shuttle landed near Miller's position. Dr. Wells emerged, carrying several equipment cases. The xenobiologist looked tired but determined as she approached Miller and Bright. I've been studying the Lumen telepathic abilities, she explained, setting down her equipment. And I think there's a way we can use them to our advantage. Wells opened one case, revealing devices that resembled small silver discs. These are neural disruptors, designed to interfere with specific brain patterns. We use them for medical purposes, but with some adjustments. She looked at Bright. Your people can communicate telepathically. Can you also project sensations, images, feelings? Bright's glow pulsed thoughtfully. We can share emotions and simple images with those who are receptive. But the raiders' minds are closed to us. Too chaotic, too violent. You don't need to connect with their minds, Wells said. You just need to create enough telepathic noise to confuse their equipment. She pointed to devices mounted around the temple. Those are sensor arrays. They detect movement, heat, even neural activity. But they can't distinguish between real signals and telepathic projections. Miller understood immediately. A diversion. If the Lumen create enough telepathic activity, the raiders' sensors will be overwhelmed, Wells finished. They won't be able to tell what's real and what's not. Bright looked at the other Lumen who had gathered to listen. We have never used our abilities this way before, as a weapon. Not a weapon, Wells corrected gently. A shield. Protection for your people inside. After a moment of silent communication among themselves, Bright nodded. We will try. While Wells worked with the Lumen, Miller gathered his team. We need a way into that temple that the raiders won't expect. An elderly female Lumen named Shimmer approached. There are passages beneath the temple, ancient ways known only to our priests. I can show you. In orbit, the Nemesis continued its hit-and-run attacks against the raider fleet, but Captain Reese knew her ship couldn't sustain this pace much longer. Damage was accumulating, and the raiders were getting better at anticipating their movements. Captain, Stone said quietly, we need a new strategy. Reese studied the tactical display. The 5 remaining raider ships had formed a tight defensive formation around Dusk's command vessel. They were no longer chasing the Nemesis, conserving their energy, and waiting for the human ship to attack. They think they've figured us out, Reese said with a slight smile. Let's show them something new. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to Sergeant Miller. Beneath the ancient temple, Miller led his team through narrow tunnels that hadn't been used in centuries. The passages were tight, forcing the humans to crouch as they moved. Shimmer guided them, her natural glow providing just enough light to see. The temple was built over a natural cave system, Shimmer explained. Our ancestors used these passages for meditation and private ceremonies. The tunnels eventually led to a vertical shaft. Miller's helmet scanner indicated they were directly beneath the temple's central chamber. This is it, Shimmer whispered. The chamber of light lies above us. There is a hidden entrance behind the altar. Miller checked his chronometer. Everybody, in position. Remember, we move on my mark, not before. His communicator beeped softly. Sergeant, came Captain Reese's voice. We're ready up here. Operation begins in 5 minutes. Understood, Captain. We're in position. Miller turned to Shimmer. Return to Bright and the others. Tell them to be ready. After the Lumen departed, Miller addressed his team. This will be close quarters combat with hostages present. Precision is everything. Captain Reese is about to give the raiders something else to worry about, and the Lumen will blind their sensors. Our job is to get in, secure the hostages, and capture Dusk if possible. The soldiers checked their weapons one final time. Unlike their earlier encounters, this would be the most dangerous part of the mission. The raiders would be cornered, desperate, and under the direct command of Dusk, a trained military commander. On a hillside overlooking the temple, bright wells and over 100 lumen had gathered in concentric circles. They sat with hands linked, their bodies glowing. With increasing intensity, focus your thoughts, Wells guided them. Don't try to reach individual minds, instead project your emotions outward, like ripples in water. The lumen began to pulse with light, their natural bioluminescence growing stronger. The air around them seemed to shimmer with energy. That's it, Wells encouraged. Keep building the energy. In orbit, Captain Reese gave her boldest order yet. Power down all systems. Make it look like we've suffered catastrophic damage. The bridge lights dimmed as the Nemesis went dark, appearing dead in space. Only minimal life support and internal communications remained active. Now we drift, Reese said softly, right into the heart of their formation. The Nemesis, its black hull nearly invisible against the backdrop of space, began to float toward the Raider fleet like a piece of debris. The Raiders, seeing the human ship apparently disabled, maintained their defensive posture but didn't fire. They think we're dead, Stone whispered. Let them keep thinking that, Reese replied, until it's too late. Miller's chronometer reached 0. Go. Simultaneously, 3 things happened. In orbit, the seemingly dead Nemesis suddenly roared back to life in the middle of the Raider formation, all weapons firing at point-blank range. On the hillside, the gathered lumen released a massive telepathic surge that overwhelmed every sensor in and around the temple. To the Raiders inside, it appeared as if thousands of beings were approaching from all directions. And beneath the temple, Miller's team burst through the hidden entrance into the Chamber of Light, catching the Raiders in a moment of complete confusion. The chamber was vast, with a domed ceiling covered in crystal formations that reflected light in dazzling patterns. Lumen hostages huddled in the center, surrounded by Raider guards. On a raised platform stood Commander Dusk, his 4 arms gesturing wildly as he shouted, "Orders! What's happening?" Dusk roared as alarms blared and his guards stumbled in confusion. The sensors are detecting movement everywhere. At that moment, Miller's team struck. Stun blasts dropped the nearest Raiders before they could react. Others turned to fight, but the humans moved with coordinated precision, each soldier covering the others as they advanced. Dusk saw what was happening and grabbed the nearest lumen hostage, a child whose light flickered in terror. "Stop or I'll kill this one," he shouted, pressing a weapon against the child's head. Miller aimed his rifle but couldn't risk the shot. The other Raiders, seeing their commander's example, also seized hostages. For a moment, everything hung in balance. The human soldiers couldn't advance without endangering the hostages, but the Raiders couldn't escape. Then, something unexpected happened. The lumen hostages, connected telepathically to Bright and the others outside, acted together, as if receiving a silent signal. Every lumen in the chamber suddenly flared with blinding light. The Raiders, unused to the intense brightness, recoiled and shielded their eyes. In that brief moment, Miller's team struck. Precision shots dropped. The disoriented Raiders one by one. Dusk, still holding the lumen child, backed toward an exit. "Stay back," he warned. Miller lowered his weapon slightly. "It's over, Dusk. Your fleet is being destroyed as we speak. Surrender, and you'll be treated according to galactic law." "Treated by what law?" Dusk snarled. "The law of the strong? Because that's the only law that matters out here." "No," Miller replied calmly. "The law that protects the weak from predators like you." As they faced each other, the child in Dusk's grasp suddenly went completely dark, stopping its glow entirely. Surprised, Dusk glanced down, and in that split second of distraction, Miller fired. The stun blast hit Dusk squarely, and he collapsed. Throughout the chamber, the Raiders were being secured by Miller's team. The lumen hostages, their glow returning to normal, embraced each other in relief. Miller approached the child who had been held by Dusk. The young lumen looked up at him with large, luminous eyes. "You stopped your light," Miller said, impressed. "How did you know to do that?" The child's glow pulsed gently. "I felt it in your mind. The darkness that hides the light. Sometimes to be safe one must be silent." Miller nodded, understanding dawning. The Lumen were learning from the humans, just as the humans were learning from them. His communicator activated with Captain Reese's voice. "Ground team, status?" "Temple secured, Captain," Miller reported. "Dusk is in custody. All hostages safe." "Well, done," Reese replied. "The Raider fleet has been neutralized. The Haven system is secure." Miller looked around the ancient chamber, where humans and Lumen now stood together in victory. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Reese said, "we show the galaxy what happens when someone sends a distress call to Earth." 3 days after the battle, a Galactic Council ship arrived at Haven. The sleek diplomatic vessel named Harmony entered orbit cautiously. Its scanners showed the remains of the Raider fleet, disabled ships drifting under guard by the HMSE Nemesis, which still bore the scars of combat on its dark hull. Ambassador Gray stood nervously on the Harmony's observation deck, watching as a shuttle from the Nemesis approached their docking bay. He had come expecting to find devastation, perhaps even to conduct rescue operations for any surviving Lumen. The Council had sent medical teams, aid workers, and a small security force. What Gray hadn't expected was to find the Raider threat completely neutralized, the Lumen population largely intact, and reconstruction already underway. "I still don't understand how they did it," Gray murmured to Admiral Pike, who stood beside him. "One ship against 7, a dozen soldiers against hundreds of Raiders." Pike didn't answer immediately. The old military officer had suspected the humans might be effective, but even he hadn't imagined such a decisive victory. "Perhaps," Pike said finally, "we've underestimated them." The shuttle docked and Captain Reese emerged. She wore her formal uniform, but her face showed signs of exhaustion beneath her professional demeanor. Ambassador Gray, Admiral Pike, Reese greeted them with a small bow. "Welcome to Haven." Gray stepped forward, extending his thin hands in the traditional council greeting. "Captain Reese, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer our sincere gratitude for your intervention." Reese accepted the gesture politely. "My crew performed admirably, but there's someone else you should meet." She turned and gestured to the shuttle. Elder Bright emerged, his light pulsing gently. Several council members gasped. They had expected to find the Lumen traumatized, hiding from violence they couldn't understand. Instead, Bright stood tall, his glow strong and steady. "Greetings, Ambassador," Bright said. "The Lumen of Haven welcome the Galactic Council." Gray fumbled for words. "Elder Bright, we came prepared to offer emergency aid and evacuation if necessary, but it seems that we are rebuilding rather than fleeing." Bright finished with a gentle pulse of light that indicated amusement. "Yes, thanks to our human allies." Gray looked from Bright to Reese, confusion evident on his face. "Allies? But the Lumen abhor violence. And humans are quite capable of it," Reese acknowledged. "But capability doesn't equal desire, Ambassador. We did what was necessary to protect the Lumen. Nothing more." "I'd like to see the situation on the surface," Admiral Pike interjected. Reese nodded. "Of course, we can depart immediately." The Council delegation's shuttle descended toward Haven's largest city. From above, they could see the damage done by the Raiders: burned buildings, shattered crystal towers, scarred land where mining equipment had torn up the soil. But they could also see activity everywhere. Humans and Lumen worked side by side, clearing debris and setting up temporary structures. Some areas already showed signs of rebuilding. The shuttle landed in a cleared area near the temple. Sergeant Miller stood waiting with several of his team, members and a group of Lumen, including the child who had helped capture Dusk. As Gray and the other council members stepped out, they stared in amazement at the scene around them. Humans in work clothes operated machinery that moved heavy debris, while Lumen used their natural abilities to illuminate darkened areas and communicate across distances. "This is unexpected," Gray admitted, as Miller led them toward the temple. "We thought the Lumen would be traumatized by exposure to violence, that they would fear the humans." Miller glanced at the child walking beside him. They were afraid at first, he acknowledged, but not anymore. Inside the temple, the Chamber of Light had been converted into a command center. Maps and holographic displays showed reconstruction plans. Humans and Lumen moved about with purpose, working together with surprising efficiency. "I don't understand," Gray said, watching a human engineer explain a structural repair to a group of attentive Lumen. "How did you overcome their natural aversion to your warlike nature?" Bright, who had joined them, answered, "Ambassador, the Lumen have existed for thousands of years without experiencing violence. When the raiders came, we had no defense against their cruelty." His light dimmed slightly at the memory. "We feared the humans at first, yes. Their minds contain darkness we do not possess." The elder Lumen's glow brightened again. "But we learned something important. The darkness in humans is balanced by light. They can imagine terrible violence, yet choose peace. They prepare for the worst while working for the best," Miller added. "And we learned from the Lumen, too. They've shown us different ways to solve problems, ways that don't always involve force." Gray looked skeptical. "And what happens when you leave? The raiders may be gone, but there are others like them in the galaxy." "We're not leaving," Reese said simply. "Not entirely." The captain led them to another part of the temple, where a formal document was displayed. "The Lumen have asked for a permanent human presence on Haven, a small security force, technical advisors, and cultural exchange." Pike read the document with interest. "This is a formal alliance treaty. The first of its kind between Earth and another species," Reese confirmed. "Already approved by our government." Ambassador Gray appeared concerned. "The Council wasn't consulted on this matter." "With respect, Ambassador," Bright interjected gently, "Haven is a sovereign Lumen colony. We may choose our own allies." Gray looked from the Lumen elder to Captain Reese, finally understanding the significance of what had happened. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was first contact between two species who, despite their differences, had found value in each other. Later that evening, as the sun set over Haven, a small ceremony took place in the temple gardens. The Lumen performed a traditional light dance, their bodies creating patterns of incredible beauty in the growing darkness. The humans watched in appreciation, their usual military discipline relaxed for once. Ambassador Gray found Captain Reese, standing apart from the others, looking up at the stars. "Your mission here is complete, Captain," Gray said. "The Council will ensure proper recognition for your service." Reese smiled slightly. "That's not why we came, Ambassador." "Then why did Earth respond so quickly to a distress call from a species you'd never even met?" "Because they asked for help," Reese said simply. "And on Earth we believe that when someone asks for help, you help them. It's that simple." Gray considered this. "Admiral Pike mentioned this trait of yours. He called it a compulsion." "Perhaps it is," Reese acknowledged. "On our world, those who could help others but choose not to are considered lacking something essential." They watched as a human child and a Lumen child played together near a fountain, the human teaching the Lumen a game with small stones, while the Lumen created tiny light patterns that the human tried to catch. "The Council feared you," Gray admitted, quietly. "When Earth joined us 5 years ago, many believed it was only a matter of time before humans tried to dominate through force. Your world, your history, they're so different from the rest of us." "Yes," Reese agreed. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We had to become strong to survive." She watched the playing children with a soft expression. "But strength doesn't have to be frightening, Ambassador. It can also protect." In the garden, more humans and Lumen had joined the children's game, laughing and glowing in the growing darkness. "Your ships are called His Majesty's ship," Gray noted. "Nemesis is a name from human mythology, is it not? The goddess of retribution." "Yes," Reese nodded, "but also of balance and harmony. She brought retribution to those who needed it, but protection to those who deserved it." As they watched the celebration, Admiral Pike approached with a data crystal in hand. Captain Reese, this just arrived from Earth. 3 more human ships are being dispatched to Haven. They're bringing construction equipment, medical supplies, and teachers. Teachers? Gray questioned. The Lumen want to learn from us, Miller explained, joining the conversation. And we want to learn from them. They understand harmony in ways we don't. We understand protection in ways they don't. The human sergeant looked toward where Commander Dusk was being held in a secure facility, awaiting transport to a council prison planet. The raiders thought the Lumen were easy targets because they couldn't fight back. What they didn't understand was that sometimes when you threaten the peaceful, you attract the attention of the warriors. In the night sky above them, stars glittered like distant beacons. Somewhere out there, Earth continued its own journey among the stars, a death world whose inhabitants had mastered both war and peace, violence and compassion. The Lumen's distress call had reached the Deathworlders. They hadn't sent aid workers. They hadn't sent diplomats. They had sent warriors in a dangerous ship, and in doing so they had brought not just rescue but possibility, the beginning of something new in the galaxy. A partnership between a species that understood perfect peace and one that understood necessary violence. As the celebration continued into the night, the light of the Lumen merged with the shadows of the humans, creating patterns neither species could have made alone.